substantially completed the roadway portion of the project up to State Street. There's still a little bit of landscaping and some cleanup along that section to do, but the road is pretty well done and open to traffic and trail users between 9th West and State Street. Currently, they're working east of State Street. They're going to get as much done as the weather will allow them to this year, and there will be some work that will continue through the winter, but then starting in spring of 2023 is when they'll start to make another big push to go east between 200 East until Lincoln Street. So the first place people could go to is a website that we've developed for this project. If they go to slc.gov/MyStreet, they can find a link there under the current projects for this 900 South project, and it has a lot of information about the project. On that same website, there's a hotline that they can call if they have questions. There's also an email address that they can respond to get questions, and also to be put on a list to receive monthly updates about construction.
Now it's time for my favorite part of Capital City News, the History Minute. Archaeologists first identified the Fremont culture in 1928 near Torrey, Utah, and named them after the Fremont River. They were a collective of archaic foragers who were spread across Utah. They lived in distinctive pit-dwelling homes and were capable farmers and foragers. It's thought that they vanished as a people in Utah somewhere between 900 and 1300 CE, being absorbed into other tribes thanks to the changing climate that made farming much more difficult. The Fremont were united across a huge swath of territory by their art and customs, but we don't know what the Fremont called themselves. It's important to remember that the name Fremont was given to them for the purposes of archaeological study. In 1998, when excavating for the infrastructure for a new track station in front of the arena where the Utah Jazz play, a skull and other bones were found. Archaeologists were called in and discovered that these human remains were from this era of Fremont settlement. Further digging revealed some of the ancient pit houses the Fremont lived in that would have existed close to the shores of what we now know as City Creek. After the archaeologists conducted their search, the site was cemented over and the construction of the tracks line and station continued. Today, the arena station is adorned with an arrowhead in honor of the historic site it rests upon. That's it for another episode of Capital City News. Remember, the best way to stay engaged is to stay informed, and you can do that by following us on social media at SLC.gov, subscribing to us on YouTube, or watching us on Channel 17. So, reporting in from Gallivan Plaza, I'm Brian Young.
City, and welcome to the City Council formal session meeting for 13 December 2022. Happy holidays, everybody. We continue to host hybrid meetings to keep everyone healthy and safe. Our meetings are public, and you are welcome to join us in person or by watching from the Council Agenda page, Facebook, YouTube, or SLC TV. Please continue to join us in whichever manner you feel most comfortable. And right now we'll move on to item 2. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, and welcome to the public meeting rules. If you would like to give public comment today, we are accepting comments in person or online on WebEx. If you are wearing a mask, feel free to remove it once you get called to address the council from the podium. Thank you for participating today. Before we begin moving through our agenda, I want to mention and review our rules of decorum. The City Council has always had guidelines in place to ensure our meetings are orderly, civil, and efficient to help everyone feel comfortable sharing their comments without feeling intimidated. To achieve this, our rules of decorum take effect the moment you arrive. We respect all points of view and welcome new insights. Please be respectful while sharing your comments. Avoid yelling, using profanity, making racial slurs, or obscene or defamatory remarks. If you violate this rule, we will mute your line and we will ask you to stop. If you feel the need to use such language to express your opinion, you may email council members or leave a message on our 24-hour comment line. Additionally, our staff will request your name during the WebEx registration process. To limit disruptions, your name cannot include a message or violate our rules of decorum. If your name doesn't comply, our staff will let you know. And for those joining on WebEx, please watch your chat window in case we try to reach you. Isaac Canedo from our staff will moderate our WebEx and will message you with any questions about your registration. Staff is handling many tasks, so please limit messages to technical issues and minimal information updates. If you'd like to send any comment, please feel free to mail us at P.O. Box 145, 476, Salt Lake City, 84114. Email us at council.comments@slcgov.com or call our 801-535-7654. We'll now move on to item A4. The council will approve the work session meetings of October 5th, 2021, as well as the formal meeting minutes of May 11th, 2021, August 17th, 2021, October 12th, 2021, and November 10th, 2022. I look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move for approval of the minutes.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Mono, a second from Councilmember Petro. Any discussion on this item? Seeing no discussions, I will roll call it. Councilmember Mono?
Yes.
Petro?
Yes.
Pui? Pui? Wharton?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That passes 5-0 with Councilmember Pui just dropping off on the line and Councilmember Valdemoros absent. I will now pass the time over to Councilmember Mono.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dugan, Mr. Chair, on behalf of our council colleagues, I want to thank you for your diligent leadership as the 2022 Salt Lake City Council Chair. It's a great tradition to recognize and marvel at how unique the year has been. We have certainly been through many adjustments post-COVID, new hybrid habits, and new district boundaries. Through it all, you admirably balance the needs of the council and the competing priorities for agenda time. This year, we collaborated with the administration to meet many of the needs of an ever-growing city. Some of the highlights include approving the city's largest annual budget ever. It was a significant process with COVID-19 relief funds, inflation, and population growth. We approved significant investments, over $20 million to preserve affordable housing options and reduce homelessness in the city. We completed the community-driven redistricting for council districts after the census. We devoted much time with the administration on the proposal for the Other Side Academy to move ahead with the tiny home village. We approved projects to calm traffic and speeding through our neighborhoods, several land use projects which will guide us as our city continues to grow, and celebrated a contract the amazing city attorney's office negotiated with Utah Inland Port staff. We spent many hours discussing critical capital improvement project options that helped pave the way for parks, trails, and open space bond, which will fund projects across the city. And we also approved plans and funding for water and sewer treatment infrastructure, growing the city's language access services, continued expansion of public safety responses, and the list goes on and on. Certainly, as we reflect on the year's highlights, we also remember the work that it takes as chair to help prioritize issues important to each individual council member and things that directly affect our residents' quality of life. So Dan, thank you from your council colleagues. Some council discussions this year were like a steep foothill trail. A good burn, some wandering, and some twists and turns. At times there were bumps and uncertainties. However, you always guided our discussions down the right path and kept us on time. In keeping with the theme of a rewarding trek in the foothills, we are excited to present you with a photo of the Dry Creek Trail, which we understand is your favorite trail. Windshen is one of your favorite trails for biking, with its switchbacks cutting west out of the canyon up towards the saddle. So this is a commissioned photo of a beautiful fall sunset in the Dry Creek Trail area, captured by local photographer William Huff.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Whether you choose to hang this on your wall or display it on your desk, we hope this gift brings you the sense of peace and serenity you experience when you're venturing through the open foothills of our great city.
Great. Thank you.
We also hope it reminds you of how grateful we are for your leadership in 2022. On behalf of the Salt Lake City Council, thank you.
Thank you.
I need to turn my mic on. Thank you for the opportunity to be the chair this year. I appreciate that. And I appreciate all your support over this past year. And it's been a fascinating ride. I've loved every minute of it. I've gone from military time to civilian times, giving you a couple extra minutes every once in a while. So I do learn, and I do have some compassion on occasions. But I really want to thank this woman to the right of me and her staff. And you have an incredible staff. You've done an incredible job here. Your mentorship, your guidance, your nudging, your sage inputs are always appropriate and always welcomed, and I love them. And your staff is brilliant, and you've done a wonderful job collaborating and making us really good, I guess that's right. So you're amazing public servants, and I appreciate everything you've done. Mayor, same thing. Your staff is wonderful. I love working with them. I love working with you. And I think as together as a city, we do a nice piece of work together. So appreciate you and your staff, Rachel, Lindsay. So thank you very much. And council members, I look forward to the next year. I look forward to the holiday break. But all importantly, thank you for all your work together. And again, your sage advice. You're nudging me, showing me different perspectives, and kind of telling me, sit down on occasions. So I appreciate that. And of course, I have to thank Sarah, the quiet leader of the house, my CEO, my CFO, across the board. Thank you for all the last couple of years and allowing me to participate here. Happy holidays. You want a picture? What's the picture? Oh, me? Okay. Cindy? You want to get up? Sure. Sarah can come up too. Come on, Sarah. Okay, now we're moving on to item B, which is public hearings. We will now begin our public hearing comments. Taylor Hill, our staff, will be calling the names of those who wish to comment. We will call names of people on WebEx and in person based on the order of registration or received comment cards. Once we open the public comment, Taylor will announce 3 names at a time so people can have some notice and to prepare to speak. When it's your turn to speak, Taylor will announce your name. If you are on WebEx, your line will be unmuted and you may begin. If you're here in person, please step up to the podium to make your comment. Once Taylor announces your name, to begin, please state your name and your 2-minute timer will start. At the 2-minute mark, staff will announce time. If you're unable to finish your comments, please send the rest via email, mail, or call our office. Our contact information is available in the meeting room and in the WebEx chat. If you no longer wish to speak, please either message our staff or when staff states your name, just let us know you're here to listen. Our first public hearing combines items B1 through B3 to be heard as one public hearing for the following grant applications. Item B1, grant application, the 2022 Brownfields Cleanup Program Grant. Item B2 is a grant application, 2022 Strengthening Mobility and Revolutioning Transportation Grant. Item B3, the 2022 State of Utah Alcohol and Drug-Free Committee DUI Enforcement Equipment Grant. And before we begin comments, I will turn the time over to Sylvia Richards, Council Policy Analyst, to give us a short intro, and Sylvia's on the screen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The city applies for and receives grants which help to support and fund some city programs. Each grant application is reviewed and then receives a public hearing, which gives the public an opportunity to comment on them. Tonight, there are 3 grants, as you mentioned. First is the Environmental Protection Agency 2022 Brownsfield Cleanup Grant Program, located in the RDA's North Temple project area, which would clean up hazardous materials at 22 South Jeremy Street. Second, the Strengthening Mobility and Revolutionizing Transportation SMART grant, which was submitted by UTA for improving transit safety at 30 UTA Route 1 intersections in Salt Lake City. And third is the 2022 State of Utah Alcohol and Drug-Free Committee DUI Enforcement Equipment Grant, which would provide portable breath testing devices for the police department. Again, these are items for which the city has applied. And that's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. And Taylor, please start our first public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It looks like we do not have anyone here for these items.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and refer items B1 through B3 to a future consent agenda for action.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Fowler, a second from Councilmember Mono. Any discussion on this item? See no discussion of the roll call. Councilmember Petro.
Yes.
Mono.
Yes.
Wharton.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Bowie.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That motion passes 6-0 with Councilmember Valdemoros absent. We will now move on to item number B4, which is the ordinance for the library budget amendment number 1 for fiscal year 2022 to 23. And I will turn the time over to Ben Lucky for a short intro.
The budget amendment has one item. It's a request for $1.3 million from the library's fund balance, also known as the Rainy Day Fund or Savings Account. The funding is for facilitating the purchase of property. If the council approves the budget amendment, then the library's fund balance would have a remaining amount of $6.5 million, which is 22% of ongoing revenue. As a reminder, the library board is the policy-making body for the library. The council is the budget and taxation authority for the library. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ben. And Taylor, the first public comments.
Mr. Chair, there is no one registered for this item.
Thank you. So I will look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that council close the public hearing and adopt an ordinance amending fiscal year 2023 final budget of the Salt Lake City Library only for items shown on the motion sheet.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Romano, a second from Councilmember Fowler. Any discussion on this item? Seeing no discussions, I will roll call this. Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
Orton.
Yes.
Romano.
Yes.
Petro.
Yes.
Bowie.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That passes 6-0 with Councilmember Valdemoros absent. We will now move on to our potential action items. And this, item number 1 is the ordinance rezone master plan amendment and alley vacation at 1550 South Main Street assemblage. I will look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council adopt the ordinance with a requirement that the petitioner enter a development agreement with the following conditions as outlined in the ordinance. 1, include a minimum 1,000 square feet of commercial space with frontage on Main Street. Include a minimum 10 two-bedroom dwelling units in the development. Provide a minimum of 1/2 on-site parking space per dwelling unit in the development. Provide on-site bicycle maintenance facilities. Provide on-site secure storage for a minimum of 15 bicycles. Housing being removed from the site must be replaced. Property for the vacated alley must be integrated in the future development. The rezoned parcels must be consolidated through the appropriate process. The proposed method of disposition of the alley property shall be consistent with the method of disposition set forth in section 14.52.040, chapter 2.58 of Salt Lake City Code and all other applicable laws. I further move that the council close petition number PLN PCM 2022-00065, amending the Central Community Master Plan as it is no longer needed because the Ballpark Stationary Plan was adopted after the petition was submitted and overrides the Central Community Master Plan.
Second? Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion for Councilmember Mono, second from Councilmember Wharton. Any discussion on this item? Seeing no discussions, I will roll call. Councilmember Petro.
Yes.
Mono.
Yes.
Wharton.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Bowie.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That passes 6-0 with Councilmember Valdemoros absent. I will now move on to item C2, an ordinance, the budget amendment number 4 for fiscal year 2022 to 23. I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the City Council adopt an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2023 fiscal budget of Salt Lake City for items only as shown on the motion sheet.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Wharton, a second from Councilmember Petro. Any discussion on this item? Seeing no discussions, I will roll call. Councilmember Petro.
Yes.
Mono.
Yes.
Wharton.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Bowie.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That passes 6-0 with Councilmember Valdemoros absent. Moving on to item number C3, an ordinance to rezone a master plan amendment at 675 North Fifth Street.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to point out the motion 1 did not include any of the proposed full-time employee positions. If the council wanted to address those, they have separate motions on the second page of the motion sheet.
We don't have a second page of the motion sheet, Ben. Sorry. I think that's why nobody said anything. I read the staff note.
Mr. Chair, having
Some positions.
We can print
there-
it.
having voted on the prevailing side, I'd like to recall the last
Other
motion.
motions. Hold
Wait,
on.
nope.
Before you do that.
It's just
Yep.
additional.
Never mind. Withdrawn.
I can print them and be right back.
Okay, Nick just went to check on it also. Another thing that you could do, we could quickly tell you, is it just the staffing?
It's just the staffing. There
Okay.
are 4 separate motions.
Right.
Okay, so if you don't mind, let me
Yeah.
take a swing at it. The golf staff request is the one that does not tie directly to the bond, and that they could probably wait until the new fiscal year. The engineering positions the contract positions and the positions in public lands are all tied to the bonds, not immediately, but they will be, and I went over this in gory detail, and so did Ben. They will be kind of clearing the decks and helping get caught up in the contracting area and in the engineering area, in the public lands area, so that the bonding can move ahead. So if you wanted to, you could do a motion for, well, you could just combine all four if you wanted to say no to all four. If you want to say yes to all four, you can do one motion. If you want to say yes to just the bond related, the ones that we think are bond related, you could do two motions and just approve those three categories of bond related topics and then vote separately on the golf.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I move that I'm going to make this up, so Katie, tell me if I need to get something else in there, but I'd move that the council adopt an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2023 final budget to include staffing of engineering, finance, and public lands, as those positions are related to the bond that was passed in November. Is that clear enough?
And as requested by the administration.
And as requested by the administration. Look, I might have something here. Hold, please. We may amend that motion.
I make one correction. The ordinance of the budget amendment is listed. These are motions to include as adopted items.
Okay. How about I do this and start over? Mr. Chair, may I start over?
Yes.
Great. I further move that the council approve, or I would move that the council approve a new,
That's
nope,
golf.
the council approve 2 new contract development specialists in the budget amendment.
Have a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Fowler, a second from Councilmember Petro. Any discussion on this item? This is motion number 3 on the sheet. Seeing no discussions, I will roll call it. Councilmember Pui.
Yes.
Petro.
Yes.
Mono.
Yes.
Horton.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
I'm a yes. That passes 6-0 with Councilmember Valdemorris absent.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would further move that the council approve a new senior project manager in the budget amendment.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Fowler, a second from Councilmember Mono. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Councilmember Pui.
Yes.
Petro.
Yes.
Mono.
Yes.
Horton.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
I'm a yes, and that passes 6-0 with Councilmember Valdemorris absent.
And finally, Mr. Chair, I would further move that the council approve 2 new planners in the budget amendment.
Can
Second.
I have a
Is that right?
clarification? Yes. The motion number 4 and motion number 5, the positions are both provisional or listed as provisional. So I don't know if you intended that to be part of your motion. What that equates to is that those positions would go off of the staffing document once the bond money has been expended.
Yes,
That's what you intended.
I think so.
And that's already in the
Yep.
budget
That was in the
amendment,
staff
right?
report. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it just,
I am intending that, yes, in both of those motions.
So I had a motion from Councilmember Fowler, a second from Councilmember.
Yes.
Mono.
Second.
Any discussion on this item? Seeing no discussion, Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
Horton.
Yes.
Mono.
Yes.
Petro.
Yes.
Pui.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That passes 6-0 with Councilmember Valdemorris absent. Thank you very much for that clarification, Ben.
I think we waddled our way through that.
Moving on to item C3, rezone and master plan amendment at 675 North F Street, Capitol Parks Cottage. The petitioner Ivory Development. I will look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that council adopt the ordinance amending the zoning of the property at 675 North F Street from FR 3-12,000 to SR 1 and amend the Avenues Community Master Plan future land use map subject to the applicant entering into a development agreement with the city, which includes the following conditions. 1, accessory buildings shall not be allowed in rear yards located on the westmost property line of the subject property. 2, where the westmost property line is a rear or side property line, the second levels of any homes along that rear or side property line shall be set back at least 30 feet from the corresponding rear or side property line. 3, specify that ADUs may not be used as short-term rentals using CCNRs or another method that is determined to be efficient and appropriate. 4, open space areas shown on the draft drawings will generally be accessible to the community at large, with rules and management to be established by the HOA. And 5, confirming that the city building approval and permitting process will be followed to build the retaining walls on the property.
Second.
I have a motion.
I'd like to make a substitute motion. Mr. Chair, that in addition to those requirements, I move that the council adopt the ordinance amending the zoning of the property at 675 North F Street from FR 3 12,000 to SR 1 and amend the Avenues Community Master Plan future land use map subject to the following conditions. The ordinance rezoning the property at 675 North F Street will be published and become effective only after the property owner records a restrictive covenant against the entire property, which would require that all walls built on the property are subject to the table in City Code 21A.36.020B. For any terrace of retaining walls, each 4-foot vertical retaining wall must be separated by a minimum of 3 horizontal feet. And 2, the restrictive covenant be approved by the city prior to recording and will be enforceable by Salt Lake City Corporation.
Second.
And Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak to this.
Yeah, just 1 second. Let me explain what we're doing and you can talk.
Okay.
Right. So just for the public, we have 2 motions. The first motion was Councilmember Mono with a second from Councilmember Pui. And we had a substitute motion from Councilmember Wharton with a second from Councilmember Fowler. And so because both these motions are approving the rezone with different stipulations, we have a substitute motion, and we will hear comments about the substitute motion. We will vote on that substitute motion. If that substitute motion, if that substitute motion passes, then that motion passes, and then we don't vote on the first motion. If that motion fails, then we vote on the first motion from Councilmember Mono. If that fails, then everything fails. If that passes, it passes, and that becomes the ruling. So at this point, and we usually have a discussion after a motion, and this is a discussion after the substitute motion. Now, take a breather there. There's other times when you actually make a motion, and then you actually have if that motion passes, then you can have a second motion. But we can't do that because both these motions are approving the rezone with different stipulations.
Well, yeah. Mine adds 2 stipulations. Yes.
With different, okay, yes. So the discussion now is back to Councilmember Warden.
Thank you. Council members, our first duty as elected officials is to look out for the health, safety, and welfare of our residents. We have an ordinance, City Code 21A.36.020B, that establishes a certain standard for retaining walls inside and backyards with steps that go 4 feet high and 3 feet deep. That ordinance is in place now. That ordinance serves not only for the integrity of the walls, but also to give clearance in the event of a collapse and to reduce the danger of people, most likely children, falling from a sheer drop-off. This ordinance has been the standard for properties around the city for several years and was in place long before the applicant acquired the property. It's not an obscure part of the code, it's part of the general table of requirements. There is a 50-foot grade change from the highest corner of the lot to the lowest. The applicant estimates that building the retaining wall under the city's existing standards would likely impact 4 to 5 of the 19 principal dwellings. Reducing the buildable area of 4 to 5 properties in a multi-million-dollar development is very reasonable, and it would do a lot to ease the valid safety concerns raised by residents in the area. The Planning Commission saw the need for a 25-foot setback to address privacy concerns on the western border of the property. The applicant has agreed to incorporate that recommendation into their plans. Surely a similar 25-foot setback from the northern portion for the sake of safety can also be accommodated and still make this profitable. In our earlier discussions, it was suggested that the retaining walls may be more about limiting density. Well, that's entirely up to the applicant. I would argue that the exception to our normal building wall requirements is more about making adjustments to the general 4 foot by 3, is more about making exceptions to the normal requirement where that doesn't make sense or where it's impracticable. That exceptions should not be used to build homes that are 2 to 3 times the typical size for an SR1 lot, and for an estimated $400 per square foot that these houses are expected to sell for. It's not a question of walls versus density. It's a question of profitability on these 4 to 5 units only. Just a few hundred feet away from this property, on the very same road, there are properties whose retaining walls, which were built to the city's established standard, signed off by engineers, and certified after our review, which have failed, spilling rocks, dirt, and building materials onto the only access road that connects these houses to the rest of the avenues. That single road. It's the same road that is at issue here. Presumably, these walls were also, as I said before, these all went through the normal approval process. I'm not suggesting that retaining walls that follow the 4 foot by 3 foot step requirements are infallible, or that retaining walls built outside of these specifications are doomed to collapse. What I'm saying is that it's our duty to reduce risk to safety and well-being, especially when we know that risks are there. In the 5 years that I've been on the council, there have been 3 wildfires in this area. Last year, there was a major mudslide. The year before that, there was an earthquake. When these events happen again, and they will happen again, we should not be willing to risk blocking the only access road to these residents. We should not be willing to risk rocks, walls, asphalt, and cars collapsing from 17 feet above and sliding directly into someone's home. When the metal framing on the previous project at 255 State Street proved to be unsound, we stopped that project at great cost to the taxpayers and the private investors. A few months ago, when we debated the Other Side Village, we built in measures to scrutinize the remediation plans for the old adjoining landfill at the expense of the developer. We do this because, not to burden or punish private developers, but when private developers come to the table asking for a change in the law, we must consider the public interests in their request. Yes, we are in a housing crisis. Yes, there are historic inequities that we must work in every neighborhood to try to right. But we must not be so quick to address one crisis that we risk creating another. Our duty is to the health, safety, and welfare of residents, and that compels us to take reasonable steps to reduce the risks this proposal presents, even if that means a few less units or ultimately a smaller profit margin. Again, that choice is up to the developer.
Mr. Chair,
Councilmember Puig.
I would like to, bring about the conversation we had today in the work session, where it was clearly stated that walls that do not follow that 4x3 process can be made safe. There are currently walls not very far from this place where they are safe. Engineers and the engineers in the city will have to approve whatever changes in walls. So this is not a blank check to do whatever they want to as far as safety. No kids, as far as the director, have been killed by these walls or jumped from them. So I believe that we are bending the rules to just appease a part of town that just doesn't want to see any changes in density. As I stated before, this is a very low dense project. It should be bigger. It should be taller. And I know that, You know, that is something that many will never agree with. But I don't believe that we should be adding an extra step into this process when we shouldn't. It was stated before. There is a process to build walls in a different way. The process is still plays, and I believe that, you know, because of Councilmember Wharton and many of the concerns from the neighbors, this motion addresses many of the issues. There's a lot of the issues already addressed on that motion sheet.
Thank you
Mr.
very
Chair.
much, Councilmember Fowler.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out, we had a very long, robust discussion about this earlier today and multiple other times, but did want to point out that I don't think at least my perspective of why I've seconded this particular substitute motion is because we're not saying no to the density. In fact, both motions, the motion is approving the zoning, which would increase density. It's simply adding another step to create safety. And there's discussion about this being, you know, a backdoor way of not including density, but I don't think in my discussions with Councilmember Wharton that is at all what's happening. It is a safety issue. It is, and for me, I think that, again, I made this clear earlier, it's more important that I wish that they were affordable, but at the end of the day, I think that we are still wanting to have the density, and I don't disagree with you. We should have more density there. But we've talked a lot about it, so that's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Fowler. Any other discussion items? Councilmember Mono.
I'll make a quick, I also agree. I wish that these were affordable. I think that this could be do much more to create affordable housing in a high opportunity zone, but that's not what we were asked to vote on. And so I wish that we were asked the question whether we would support higher density for affordability. I wish that had come to our desk, but it didn't. So unfortunately, I feel I have to vote within the realm of what I've been presented.
Councilmember Petro.
Additionally, we've had a lot of discussion about profit margins of private companies that are not subject to public regulation when those profits are earned by legal ways. Additionally, we've heard impugning of the intentions of activists or community protectors trying to seek out this 4x3. It is not our duty to suss out their intentions if they're trying to limit how many units. What is our duty is to say, is this density appropriate for this? And is there a way to safely accomplish what is being asked with that level of density? I am not convinced that the 4x3 provides the safety. However, the safety is paramount. I am not hired or elected to be an engineer. That duty needs to be delegated to an engineer. Me arbitrarily saying 4x3 because it's a historic code decision that was made under other circumstances does not further anyone's safety. I don't believe that we need to restrict it. We have high caliber engineers who are capable of making good decisions, and I trust that the Ivory Company understands that should 4x3 be the actual route to safety, they will have to accommodate that. If there's another route to safety, I assume that we can get out of the way and allow that to also be accomplished.
And thank you very much for the comments. Any other further discussion points? Seeing none, I will roll call. We are voting on the substitute motion from Councilmember Wharton, second by Councilmember Fowler. So Councilmember Pui?
No.
Councilmember Fowler?
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton?
Yes.
Councilmember Mono?
No.
Councilmember Petro?
No.
And I'm a no. That fails 4-2 with Councilmember Valdemoros absent. We'll now move on to motion, Mr. Mono's motion, seconded by Councilmember Hui. Any discussion on this item? Seeing no discussion on this item, I'll roll call as Councilmember Petro.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
No.
Fowler.
No.
Pui?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That passes 4-2 with Councilmember Valdemoros absent. Moving on to item number. Comments to the mayor? Any comments to the mayor? And now we're moving on to council comments to the city council. Oh,
Sorry, can I just make a quick point of personal privilege?
go ahead.
Now that the vote is over, you all know how I feel about this. I appreciate you giving me the time to listen and understanding my advocacy for this on behalf of my residents. We just see this proposal differently. I want to thank all of the residents who got involved and gave us your feedback on this project, whether you were for it or against it or somewhere in between. I've said before that lawmaking is not a zero-sum game. Dialogue, debate, and even discomfort are important parts of the public process. And while many Avenues residents may not feel like it with today's vote, I believe that your input has helped make this project better than it might otherwise have been. And I hope you'll use this experience to inform future advocacy efforts, not only in our neighborhood, but in other neighborhoods that have historically had less time and fewer resources. So thank you so much for your work on that. Thank you.
Chair, can
Thank you, Councilmember
I take a
Wharton.
point of personal privilege?
Go ahead.
I would like to thank Councilmember Wharton for being an example of how to advocate for your constituents in a consistent, methodical way that helped me see questions and policy issues that I didn't initially, and helped bring about constructive conversation and modification to this. Thank you for being an example to us and for being an advocate for your constituents.
Thank you very much for both of you, the comments, and appreciate all the engagement on that motion.
Mr. Chair.
Councilmember Pui. Councilmember Pui. We're gonna move on.
I think you might just have to give him a second.
Here you
because
go.
he's-
Are you there?
I am.
Here you go. Are you there? Okay, we'll take the one on the left.
Yes. Sorry, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry
Yes.
about that. I'm having issues with my connection at the moment, but I just wanted to say that to reiterate part of the things that I heard before my connection sort of went south, but I learned a lot through this process, and I learned a lot about how to debate ideas and how to get to the bottom of issues and how to transform the ideas of the neighbors into policy changes to move a project and to change a project. This I learned from, in this case, from Councilmember Wharton. And while we voted differently on this project, his fight for this is something that I cannot understate. I just wanted to mention that his heart is in the right place, and I believe that we all voted our hearts. But I believe that he really made an impression to me about how to fight for your district. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you very much, and thank you, everyone, again, for your comments and the engagement on this process. We will move on to the comments to the City Council. We're now at the comment portion of our agenda, and we'll hear comments on general topics and items not scheduled for the hearing tonight. We went over the City Council's rules of decorum earlier, and those rules apply here as well. We are accepting comments in person and online via WebEx. Isaac Canedo from our staff is moderating the meeting and will message attendees as needed. Taylor Hill and our staff will call the names of those who wish to comment based on the order of registration or received comment cards. Once we open the public comment, Taylor will announce 3 names at a time so that the people who can have some notice and prepare to speak. You'll have 2 minutes to speak, and at the 2-minute mark, the host will announce time and your microphone will be muted. If you no longer wish to speak, please either message our staff, or when our staff states your name, just let us know you're here to listen. I won't go over the rules of decorum at this time. I think we've been here long enough. You should all know the rules of decorum. So Taylor, please begin our first general comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It looks like there are 5 people registered for general comment. The first will be Bob Danielson, followed by Dan Thomas, and then Bernie Hart. Bob is here in person to speak.
Good evening. On October 18th, 2022, I exercised my First Amendment right to political speech by making a public comment before the City Council. My public comment included feedback on the effectiveness of city money spent at the Gil Miller Homeless Resource Center and criticism that Councilmember Mano is personally violating the exact same laws he was elected to uphold or fix. In response, Mr. Mano read a prepared statement from his computer that recklessly asserted that I, his constituent, a private person, am racist and homophobic, and I had committed the crime of stalking against his family. I filed a police report. Mr. Mano's statements are false and reckless, and the false and reckless use of inflammatory statements against me exposed me to public hatred and ridicule. I filed a police report with SLCPD for criminal defamation. Therefore, you and Mr. Mano are on notice that you and Mr. Mano are required by law to preserve all evidence related to this matter, including but not limited to the emails and text messages.
Yes.
I have also engaged with legal counsel.
We have rules of decorum that are required for all of our meetings, and those prohibit personal attacks and also prohibit a sort of back and forth. So I believe that these are, if they're not, haven't violated those terms, are bordering on that.
No personal attacks here.
Yes, I think so. There are some personal attacks.
Attacks here.
So, excuse me, sir. Your microphone is muted at this time. You can send us a comment via email or letters.
I'll just serve you.
Thank you. Taylor, our next comment.
Next will be Dan Thomas, followed by Bernie Hart, and then James Burnenson. Dan is here in person.
Watch my clock up here, or? All right. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak to the council today. I'm here to make comments on police department funding. I live in a unique part of the city where I have regular contact with our police officers and have the privilege of candid conversations with many of them. I'm here to report some disturbing trends which I've seen before, and that is rumors or chatter that their careers might be better served in outside agencies where they can get more money, higher pay. Last time chatter like this was going on, we saw a loss of a lot of police officers, and that was bad for all of us. It's the common goal for you and us to maintain a fully staffed and robust police department, so I'm asking consideration of maintaining top pay for top officers and making sure we don't lose what we're fighting so hard to get. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Bernie Hart, followed by James Burnenson, and then Levi Thatcher. Bernie is here in person.
Good evening. I don't know where to start. I've had major concerns that I've shared with the council about oversight and keeping track and monitoring how our city dollars are spent in the area of homelessness and some of the services that are provided. I really don't think there's enough oversight. And just a couple of examples. One of the fellows in our program just this week shared the fact that he is in some public housing, and there's not a large unit. I think about 40, under 50 people, and there's been 5 deaths in the last 8 months. A couple of them, at least a couple of them, with drug overdoses. He's now put double locks on his doors. And this guy was a drug user. He's coming clean. He's experiencing health problems. He's been working. He's been doing a great job. He deserves a better environment to work in than having to come home or do what he has to do in a proper way and have to worry about drugs in his place. So, and there's other housing facilities that have had their problems too. They've been well documented. And so if Salt Lake City really wants to find partners to help with the number of homeless in the city and share the burden, I think it would be almost self-serving and serve the general community really well if there was some oversight and we could prove to some, Richfield that, all the housing and the homeless and working with the homeless could be a benefit to the community. But we're only going to do that by proving that what we do work and monitor what's happening and ensuring that the facilities help transition people out of homelessness and that oversight is not there. So I'm encouraged by the work session discussion. So thank you.
Thank you, Bernie.
Next will be James Bernenson, followed by Levi Thatcher. James is here in person.
Comrades, thank you, Chairman. I've done this bout before. This gentleman says he's my representative, but he doesn't know where I stand on any issues. And since I put in civil rights as the topic I'd like to speak about, today somebody was speaking their God-given inalienable right to freedom of speech, Article 1, Section 15 of the Utah State Constitution. And my representative told me that, the state has given these people their power to abolish our God-given rights. I find that a little disturbing. Are you saying that the state asked the people to surrender their right to free speech? Because they don't have that. In order to obtain that power, they would need to go through a ballot and have the people say, yes, we relinquish our freedom of speech, our God-given inalienable right, to allow you to document it and subjugate it, do whatever it is you want with it. These things, I see all you people here today, the atrocities committed during COVID, that's a joke. All the crap coming out about Fauci, these shots, all this stuff, it's a joke. There's no oversight on anything. You guys extort us to make us obtain things such as food, shelter, any other little gimmick you can get your dirty little fingers in. You extort us. If I want food, I have to pay the extortion fee of tax. How is that right? How is that fair? I think a more better system would be a system that has no representatives, but everyone had the three common principles of self-governance, volunteerism, and natural law. And if you don't know what natural law is, there's a gentleman on the internet by the name of Mark Passiow. He does a documentary on that and breaks it down. It's basically don't steal. What you guys enable all these other people to get away with is ridiculous. You have these armed thugs here waiting to cut my mic off. I have a God-given right. You cannot take anything away from me. Article 1, Section 15 of the Utah State Constitution guarantees me this right.
Yes, you have your right, and we gave you 2 minutes, and that is our rules.
Where does it say my God-given right is 2 minutes?
James, the rules of the decorum here is 2 minutes.
I don't care. This is God's rules. You're more powerful than God?
I appreciate the
Break this down to me.
I appreciate the comments.
You're a common man. If you have godly powers, throw a lightning bolt at me.
All right. We're going to take a recess.
Maybe hang from a tree for 9 days and sacrifice your eye to gain infinite wisdom.
Thank you. We'll be right back in 5 minutes.
Salt Lake's second downtown, yet it is currently designed for vehicles that are traveling way too fast. And with my little kids, it feels very dangerous being on the narrow sidewalks. It's hard to get there by a bike. Even, the driving experience is poor. And there's a huge opportunity to create more walk-in traffic for businesses, to make the streets safer. We've had so many traffic deaths this year, including that of a little, a school-age girl on 13th South recently, that with this 21st South redesign, it's an opportunity to reduce the amount of traffic violence in the city and really show the city where our priorities lie. So I just encourage you to do whatever you can to support John Larson and the Transportation Division. We're doing an awesome job, but just support a people first design and put safety first there. Thank you very much for all your work.
Thank you, Levi.
And that was the final registered commenter.
Thank you very much, Taylor. We will now move on to new business. This brings us new business item E1.
Mr. Chair, if I may make a motion.
Well, hold on. Let me finish the statement first. Naming the Salt Lake City Justice Court building the John L. Baxter Justice Court.
Oh, still my thunder. Mr. Chair, I move that the council adopt a resolution naming the Salt Lake City Justice Court building the John L. Baxter Justice Court.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Fowler, a second from Councilmember Wharton. Any discussion on this item? Councilmember Fowler?
If I could have just a quick moment of personal privilege. Judge Baxter is here in the audience with us and with his beautiful wife and our amazing current presiding Justice Court judge at Salt Lake City Justice Court. And for those that don't know, Salt Lake City Justice Court is the busiest justice court in all of Utah. And Judge Baxter has been instrumental in creating a space where people feel heard and there is justice, and he has worked tirelessly through many of our marginalized populations and put over 20 years, right around there, of service to Salt Lake City and our Justice Court. And I am just thrilled that this is an honor for me to be here today announcing and voting on the new name of our Salt Lake City Justice Court. So congratulations, Judge Baxter. You know how much I care and adore for you, and I'm so grateful for you, your friendship, and your mentorship.
Councilmember Wharton.
Thank you. I just want to second those comments, like I seconded the motion. And as a law student in my third year of practice, I got to start trying cases in the Salt Lake City prosecutor's office, and Judge Baxter was, if not the first, one of the first two judges that I ever appeared in front of. And Judge Baxter does arraignments, and arraignments it's a very repetitive process, but it is not an easy process. This is where people are coming and this is their first introduction to, many of them, the first introduction at all to the court system, let alone the criminal justice system. And they come in and have their rights read to them, presented with the charges, and informed of what to do next. And to be able to do that day after day for courtrooms, hundreds of thousands of people, and to give that same colloquy again and again and again, any human could be forgiven for kind of turning into, making it into this robotized process. But every time when Judge Baxter did those arraignments and talked to the person standing at the podium, it was like their case was the only case that mattered. And he made sure to deliver instructions to them clearly and in a way that gave them dignity and in a way that left them walking away like they were going to be treated fairly by our court system. And that is priceless. So I just want to thank Judge Baxter. There is nobody better and more deserving of this title. And I'm so glad that I got to be on the council to vote for it. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Judge. I will now roll call this. Councilmember Pui.
Yes.
Councilmember Petro,
Yes.
Mono,
Yes.
Wharton,
Yes.
Fowler, and I'm a yes. Valamoros.
Yes.
That passes 6-0.
7-0.
7-0. I can count now. All right. Thank you very much. Judge, you want a picture? Not now. Yeah. Sorry, Bernie. Come on up, Judge. Oh, he could. He already had.
I'm a civilian. You just come in front of this one.
Right next to Amy. Stand next to Amy. Chris, you the congratulations. Chris over here. Chris.
What about Judge Landau?
Be mad. I'm prepared.
You're the photographer? Okay. Maybe you should get in one.
Thank you so much. Come on, Clem. We're all dressed for the occasion.
Get in this.
Stand right next to Amy.
Thank you all so much.
And then we'll do more pictures when his name actually gets on the building.
That's right, yeah, we'll get to do this again. It'll be great.
Thank you so much.
Excused?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, excuse. You're free to go.
Moving on to unfinished business, F1, a resolution, $6 million deeply affordable housing grant award. I will look for a motion.
Move for approve. Oh. You go. Go ahead.
I move that the council approve a resolution adopting the deeply affordable housing grant awards, including a 50-year affordability term restrictive covenant at the medically vulnerable housing and the point at Fair Park Developments, and minimum ratios of about 1 staff to 25 clients, not counting security guards at all 3 developments.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Fowler, a second from Councilmember Wharton. Any discussion on this item? Seeing no discussion on this item, I will roll call as Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
Wharton.
Yes.
Mono.
Yes.
Petro.
Yes.
Pui.
Yes.
Valamoros.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That passes 7-0 unanimously. We move on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. I know we've all made a lot of comments. I just want to say we've done a lot of things tonight, but this is perhaps one of the most impactful things that we've done. $6 million for deeply affordable housing. I think that's something we can all agree on and celebrate. So of all the difficult things that have happened, this is a moment to celebrate. So thank you, council and mayor.
Thank you for that comment. Appreciate that. I look for a motion on the consent.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Wharton, a second from Councilmember Fowler. Seeing no discussion on this item, I will roll call as Councilmember Petro.
Yes.
Wharton.
Yes.
Mono.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Pui.
Yes.
Valamoros.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That passes 7-0. We are adjourned.
And her ambulance to the front on her own dime.